That 2024 is coming to a close, I am going to review my top reads for the year. And I'm actually really surprised by this year because I have 11 five-star reads. A lot of my 4 stars were like strong 4 stars, but I'm going to be going over specifically my 5-star reads for the year. And because I've read 56 books for the year with 11 5-star reads, I'm doing good. I feel like I'm averaging, close to 1 out of 5 books is a 5-star read. And how I judge a 5-star read is really just off of the enjoyment and experience of me reading it. Not necessarily that this is like the best writing possible, but really just how much I enjoy reading it, because that is purely why I'm reading these books. Let's get into it. So, my first 5-star read for the year was Legendary. And here's the book, because I did veer off reading mostly with my Kindle this year. Some of these books were Kindle, but Legendary was not one of them. Legendary is the second book in the Caraval series, and I read this back in February. Here are my notes from my reading journal on Legendary. What did Stephanie Garber, the author, put in this book? I had so many giggle, like squirming, screaming, clapping my hands, swinging my feet moments. Oh my gosh, I love that, a part of romantasy when you're like swinging your feet because you're just so giddy reading it. The perfect balance for me of suspense, love, flirtation, and mystery. Dante is divine, and Donatella is one of my favorite FMCs yet. She's clever, daring, witty, playful, and loves big. I can't wait for more. So that was Legendary. Okay, and then my next 5-star read is actually the book right after that. So this is one of the reasons why Caraval is such a beloved series for me, is because out of the trilogy, 2 out of the 3 books were 5 stars for me. So Finale, I finished shortly after that. And these are my notes on that too. One of the very few books to ever make me cry. I'm already wishing I could time travel back to read these books for the first time. This was truly a beautiful story for me. It's whimsical, exciting, mysterious, surprising, and heartwarming. I didn't think I could love a YA series as much as I've loved this one. Scarlett redeemed herself in this book for me because she felt honestly a little boring. Like that first book, everyone's like, oh, Scarlett's really nice. But then once you learn about her sister Donatella, it's like, oh, Tella makes Scarlett look so bland. But in Finale, she definitely redeemed herself to me. I relate to Tella as someone who loves to play to win and goes after what she wants and speaks up. This book was entertaining from start to finish. I hope my daughter Remy reads this one day. So that's how I felt about Finale. So Legendary, Finale, love the Caraval series. Oh, adjusted. So you guys can see my little bookshelf moment back there, the built-ins that we added. Okay, so Legendary, Finale were my first 2 5-star reads for the year, and then we go into Clockwork Angel. And let me go to my notes from when I was reading Clockwork Angel earlier this year. So Clockwork Angel is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. This is the prequel series to the Mortal Instruments with City of Glass, City of Bones. I forgot what the other one was. But yeah, this is the prequel to the Mortal Instruments. This was a 5-star read for me. This is a really old version of the book because I got this back in high school, which is well over 10 years ago, closer to 15 years ago at this point. But I really like Tessa, the main character in Clockwork Angel. I also really liked Will. Will is very similar to Jace from the Mortal Instruments series. But I love how her Clockwork Angel, like little locket necklace, how that played into the story later on. I just really like Cassandra Clare's writing style, because I feel like there's meaning in her books. The characters are flushed out, developed to me, but it's not like I don't have to go what I call dumb mode to read her books. And I love Jem. I love the beautiful like friendship in this series, but the 5-star read for me was the first one, Clockwork Angel. Okay, so my next 5-star read is when I entered Brandon Sanderson land and read Mistborn. So let me go to my notes for Mistborn. Much more layered than what I'm used to in fantasy. So this is the cover for the Mistborn book that I read. Much more layered than what I'm used to in my fantasy reads. In many ways, better than most. The character development and the lack of tropes and the unique plot I really liked. There are so many. It's like nearly impossible to avoid so many tropes, and I think because it's mostly a fantasy book. It's not mostly a romance, that it's a lot easier to avoid most of those tropes. I feel like it was a slower start, but it was almost as if I just needed time to adjust to the more distinguished storytelling. That's what I put. And I love Vin. I love that this is like not necessarily geared towards a female reader, but Vin, being the main character as a woman, was so badass. And I just loved all the characters. It's one of those stories where you just come to love all these different characters. So Mistborn, 5-star read. And then my next 5-star read for the year is the third book in the Mistborn trilogy, and that's Hero of Ages. This is such a deeply moving book. I feel like I could cry just thinking about it because it was so beautiful to me. And I read this back in November. And it is the best ending to a series that I can really think of, like how the whole story came together and how it ended. Like it was bittersweet, but it was really, really moving. It's not there's some romance in it, but to me, it's more so a love story than anything, and a love story with found family. And I really like Ellen and Van and their relationship and how those characters grew throughout the story. And of course, Sazed, is that how you say his name? Sazed. Truly, I would recommend this series to any fantasy reader. Okay, so my next 5-star read really took me by surprise. Oh my gosh, I went out of order by accident, you guys, because they're not the physical books, and they were the 2 books that I read on Kindle, my 2 5-star reads that I read on Kindle. So back up before I start the Mistborn series. This is so bad, you guys, and I'm not good with editing, so I'm not even gonna edit this out. Just forgive me. Okay, so before I read the Mistborn trilogy, I read the Shatter Me series up to book 3, even though I read 4 because one was a novella, and the novella was the one that I rated a 5-star, and it was Destroy Me. Now looking back, I really didn't care for the series that much, so I am shocked that I gave this 5 stars when I did, but it was set in stone. When I give something a 5 stars, it's based off of how much I enjoyed reading it, and it was from Aaron Warner's point of view after Juliet shoots him and escapes. And that's when you really see, I think it's 1.5. So it's after the Shatter Me and before the second book. And it's from his perspective, and you realize why he loves Juliet the way he does, and his hope for her and the hope for their relationship. And I feel like even reading the first book, a lot of readers could pick up on that. Aaron is clearly going to be a very layered character, has a lot of walls, and you learn about why he has the walls, how he goes about building them, how tortured of a soul he really is. And I feel like that always makes people endearing. But Destroy Me, loved it. And I love just hearing Aaron Warner's POV after that. After she shoots him and he's still oh my gosh, I love her. Okay, my next book that I don't have a physical copy of, at least not here, because I loaned it to someone, that would be Ice Planet Barbarians. This book starts off as a joke, I feel like, for most people. My sister-in-law got this for me, and I remember being oh, I've heard so much about it, I'll give it a whirl. It's so good, you guys. It's really good. Yes, it's very smutty. It is pretty much Avatar porn in a lot of scenes, but it is so good. And I love that the chapters alternate between like her point of view and Vectel, Georgie's point of view, and Vectel's point of view, the barbarian, because they don't speak the same language. And so to hear like his perspective is so funny. Like there were so many parts of Ice Planet Barbarians that were hilarious to me, and them trying to speak and communicate to each other. Like, so he fell head over heels immediately upon seeing Georgie, and you learn like why that happened. But him trying to communicate to her like his intentions with her, and how much he cares about her when they don't speak the same language is hilarious. It's like it's a very cozy read to me, and that's what the series became for me. Even though this one, the reason why this was 5 stars, and I haven't rated any of the other books in the series 5 stars, is because the first one, my enjoyment and excitement reading it was top tier. And then it's like very rinse and repeated, a lot of the storyline after that. So I feel like it could never be another. It would be really hard for another book in the series to be 5 stars for me. But this first book, it hit, and I love Ice Planet Barbarians. Okay, so now we're fast forwarding, because then I had read the Mistborn trilogy, and this is where I really screwed up. So after I read the Mistborn trilogy, now we're in mid-November. I did not have high hopes for the rest of the year. I'm like, you know what? The other books that I have, I'm just going to try to start going through my bookshelf and taking care of some of the books that I were impulse purchase when I went to Changing Hands bookstore in Phoenix. That's where another novella caught me off guard, and this is 6 Scorched Roses. This was bomb. Okay, let me find my notes on 6 Scorched Roses too, because it was so good, and it was short and sweet. I'm such a series girl, and so it's really hard for me to like buy into characters when I'm reading about them once. And it's been so long since I read the other Crowns of Nyaxia books. So I know that these characters were mentioned in those books, but now you really get to know like their story, how their relationship began. But I freaking loved it. And I love that the female main character was over the age of 30. I'm 31. So I love that. Like, we had some representation there. And I loved, obviously, the character Vale. So it's Lilith and Vale. And it was in a name of Lilith. I'm like, okay, big surprise. She ends up becoming a vampire. But literally, it's just perfection. And just how the title, like, really was throughout the storyline. Sometimes the title of books, you're halfway through a book and you're like, where's the title of this book? Like, how I really felt like that with the From Blood and Ash. The title of From Blood and Ash is very obvious why that is the title of that book. But some of the titles of the other books, I'm like, it's a reach. This, though, you weren't hit over the head with it. It was just really nicely laid out of a book. Okay, my next 5-star. There's only 2 more 5 stars for the read for me. And this was also a clearing out of the TBR bookshelf. So after I read this little guy, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tackle this thicky boy. When the Moon Hatched. And knowing that the author is from New Zealand makes everything make even that much more sense. There is some New Zealand is the best, my favorite country I've ever been to, and there's something about going to New Zealand that is so whimsical to me. I know that's like a very I'm viewing it from the lens of a tourist, but there were so many, like, how I felt going to New Zealand is very similar to how I felt reading this. Now, this is a high fantasy book. I would never recommend this to my friends who are just getting started in fantasy, but if you appreciate even fantasy, like the high fantasy, and the fact that you need a glossary to reference throughout reading this book, if you like that, then this is the book for you. When the Moon Hatched, 5-star read for me. I love that, like, the wait, hold on. There's a glossary, and it literally tells you how to properly pronounce the names too. And let me just double check, because this is going to really bother me if I'm not getting it right. Okay, his name is pronounced Khan. Khan. Wait, yeah, Khan. She has K-A-H-N. To me, that's Khan. There's no way that's Can. Khan Vagor. He is the main guy, and I love how he was written. I love it. Hard stop. I love this book so much. It is it's high fantasy, it's beautiful, and literally in my review in my book journal, this is it's 690 pages, took me 6 days to read. And my review thoughts say, fitting that last year I read a 5-star book during my mom's passing, and now that I've mourned her exactly 1 year later, I happen to be reading another 5-star. The literary gods knew I needed this. Epic fantasy, the right amount of spice to me. I love the unique magic. It was so beautiful how she described these dragons and unique to me. And the cover is stunning. And it's just one of the most beautiful worlds that I've read. And I love how Khan is just such a cinnamon roll sweetie. And every fantasy lover needs this. So I love When the Moon Hatched. Boom. So those 10 5-stars. My last 5-star read for the year really caught me by surprise. Bright Young Women. I forgot who even gave me this book, and then no surprise turns out to be my sister-in-law again, who gave me this incredible book. It is not romance fantasy. It's the polar opposite. It is true crime, and it's based on real events, but there's a lot that is made up. Some of the characters, some of the chapters literally are told from the perspective of a victim, which she is past, but it's okay, what she must have been feeling when this was happening. It is based on a real life serial killer, and a lot of the things I Googled them did actually happen. And that is what's so frightening about this story to me. It had me wanting to rage for all women, but especially the victims. I love that she never actually wrote the guy's name. He's very infamous. And I don't even want to say his name on here because I feel like it is actually horrible that most people don't know the women's names, but they know his name. And how he was painted in the media. I had never done deep research on this guy, but there's enough Netflix documentaries and video movies made about him and books and stuff, that I, as a ill-informed person, had this perception that he was this brilliant mastermind, charismatic, and when in reality, this man was so lacking in all the areas that mattered. He had to literally fake his way into a mediocre law school and then flunked out months later. And he targeted women that resembled the woman who dumped him. And he was a small in stature man, small man in all the ways. And how it was really law enforcement's failings that I think they made him seem like this brilliant guy, to shy away from the fact that they failed these women and society and these families by letting him escape. So it's a lot easier to say hey, listen, he was a brilliant guy, he escaped and he has this master plan, when no, you just failed society by letting this very mediocre, probably below average guy commit all these atrocities on women, sometimes children. You hear it's horrible. And the title of the book, Bright Young Women, is because the judge during sentencing referred to the guy. I don't even want to call him a guy because he's more like a creature. Refer to him as a bright young man, which is such BS because it was the bright young women that brought justice to all their friends. And makes me emo just talking about it. But Bright Young Women, I feel like everyone should read it. And it really how this author reads him to filth, I really appreciated, because and she even makes a point how all these like documentaries and stuff that has been written and produced about this guy, it's all men producing it, writing it, directing it, and they are just repurposing very similar narratives. She's the only one that I've come across where she took the time to understand like the victims, their perception, and really get to know them and not try to rework what actually happened, and paint this guy different than how he really was. Obviously there's bias everywhere, but I feel like most women can relate to that. When you have a man like dictating the narrative, they're going to see it through a different lens. And considering that the victims were women, I think it's very fitting that the story be told from the lens of women, and especially victims who've come forth to talk about what their experience was, and listening and not trying to twist what they say to fit your story that you're trying to tell. Anyways, those are my 11 5-star reads for the year. Obviously this is not including Ice Planet Barbarians and what was the other one that Destroy Me, but I'm super happy and proud that I found 11 5-star reads for 2024. So let's see if I can hit maybe 15 in 2025. Thanks, guys.